In May 2014, the Greek press was full of reports of an extraordinarily lavish new hotel called Pomegranate, a five-star marvel on the seafront in Halkidiki, a very popular tourist destination in mainland Greece. Judging by the interiors, the investors spent tens of millions of dollars on the decor alone. And staying here is not cheap. Renting one of those rooms will cost you $4,000 a night, though that does give you access to the basement, which houses an enormous spa complex built out of solid marble. The opening ceremony had a distinctly Russian flavor, thanks to the MC, pop star and celebrity Philip Kirkorov. Alongside him were acrobats, showmen and magicians, all flown in by charter flight from Russia, no expense spared. The florists and lighting technicians were Russian too, as was the keynote speaker, Vladimir Medinsky, Culture Minister of the Russian Federation. Russian businessmen, regional governors and politicians listened to him attentively before enjoying the show. At the grand finale, fireworks and lasers lit up the building, with a gigantic Russian flag projected onto its side. Who paid for such extravagance? What businessman is so important that the culture minister himself flies in to congratulate them on their new project? You might think the only Russian businessmen capable of such extravagance would be the billionaire oligarchs that are household names in the West, but you'd be wrong. This video shows the hotel's owners cutting the ribbon. That is Artyom Chaika, son of Russia's general prosecutor. Very few people would recognize him. Despite being relatively famous, there were no public images of him until now. Artyom Chaika was a suspect in perhaps Russia's most notorious corruption investigation of the decade, that into illegal casinos in the Moscow region.
Продвигается борьба с коррупцией в силовых ведомствах.
По адресам, указанным в интернете, действительно находились подпольные казино.
Казалось, с этого вскрытия процесс пойдет по всей стране. За деньги открыть уголовное дело, закрыть, кадровые назначения и так далее.
A judge threw out the case, but it was remarkable that the general prosecutor's son featured in it at all. For many years he has, thanks to his father, enjoyed immunity from prosecution or investigation no matter what he does. That's how he became a dollar millionaire when still in his 30s. His business empire includes hotels and sandpits, cement plants and salt mines spread across Russia and beyond.
На него работают тысячи людей. Оборот его компании исчисляется сотнями миллионов долларов. Но к бизнесу то, что делает Артем Чайка и его коллеги, это не имеет никакого отношения. Это бандитизм, рейдерство и запугивание под прикрытием генерального прокурора Российской Федерации Юрия Яковлевича Чайки.
Our curiosity about the Greek hotel turned into a large-scale investigation into ties between the mafia and Russia's general prosecutor. We can reveal that the illegal casinos in the Moscow region were just one of the many sources of income enjoyed by Chaika Jr. For more than 15 years, together with his father's subordinates and underlings, Artyom Chaika has gradually established control over key assets all over Russia. In Europe, he is considered to be an ordinary oligarch, an international investor. In reality, he is nothing but a link in a long criminal chain which runs all the way up to the general prosecutor of the Russian Federation, his father. Artyom Chaika was not the only investor in that Greek hotel. Next to him is a second owner, Olga Lopatina. Since she is working with Artyom, you can already assume she's not just a random businesswoman.
Ольга Лопатина – это бывшая жена заместителя генерального прокурора Геннадия Лопатина. Она указана в его декларациях за 9 и 10 год. В 2011 году она пропала. и все имущество, которое было записано на нее, тоже исчезло вместе с ней. То есть никакого дележа имущества не было. Это такая распространенная схема, когда чиновник, желая формально избавиться от бизнеса, просто разводится со своей женой и говорит, что ну вот я такой великодушный, все своей жене оставил, все имущество, весь бизнес, и теперь она живет своей жизнью, я живу своей, и не знаю, что там у нее происходит.
A photo taken in 2014, long after the date of their supposed separation, shows her still wearing her wedding ring on her right hand. Moreover, Olga and Gennady frequently communicate via Facebook. They play games online together, like each other's photographs. So it looks like they divorced in order to avoid disclosing family assets. In this declaration before the divorce, her income was listed as 0 rubles, and yet somehow, just a few years later, she's got together enough money to build a luxurious Greek hotel. So the most intriguing question is, how did she earn those tens of millions of euros? We found out Olga Lapatina is involved in the sugar business. She is the founding partner in 2 companies, one in the Moscow region and one in the Krasnodar region in southern Russia. Olga Lapatina has some compelling reasons for hiding her involvement in this business. Her fellow founding partners were Angela Maria Tsapok and Natalia Tsepovaz. Both women are married to the leaders of the Kuchevskaya organized crime group, Sergei Sapok and his right-hand man, Vyacheslav Tsepovaz. This criminal organization ruled over and terrorized the entire Krasnodar region for 20 years. Their crimes included hundreds of rapes, dozens of murders, the illegal takeovers of companies, and the corruption of public officials. Their last criminal act was the worst. In the infamous Kuchevskaya massacre of November 4th, 2010, the gang broke into the house of a local businessman and killed 14 people, among them 3 children and an infant. They then burnt the bodies of their victims. So it appears that the Deputy General Prosecutor's spouse shares a business with the wives of the leaders of the most brutal gang in the history of modern Russia.
В этой короткой и скучной выписке из Еграюл на самом деле ответы на очень важные вопросы. Но как им удавалось контролировать огромную часть бизнеса Краснодарского края? Как им удавалось терроризировать все население? Каким образом они так долго оставались безнаказанными? Да все просто. Им покровительствовали высшие чиновники Генеральной прокуратуры.
After the mass murder, the Tsapok gang was finally caught and jailed. Most members of the organization are now in prison, and its leader, Sergei Tsapok, died in 2014 from a heart attack in his cell. The investigation of Tsapok's gang was directly supervised by Alexander Bastrykin, head of the investigative committee of the Russian Federation, who assigned his best investigators to it. It is astounding that these investigators failed to discover that the Tsapok gang did business with the wives of high-ranking officials in the prosecutor's office. After all, it was quite obvious. A previous criminal case against Tsapok had been opened long before, but the charges were dropped following a direct intervention from District Prosecutor Leonid Korzhenek. In addition to the gang leaders' wives, Lapatina's sugar business included a 4th partner, Nadezhda Staroverova, wife of Alexei Staroverov, the General Prosecutor's Chief of Staff. In November 2014, he was sacked when police officers discovered a cache of weapons and several members of the so-called GTA gang in his private residence. The gang had killed and robbed 14 people on the highways around Moscow, while the prosecutor gave them sanctuary by employing them as security guards and housekeepers. Olga did not invest all her money into the hotel. Greece's property registry shows that she owns a villa nearby, featuring marble, stained glass artwork, gold, grand chandeliers, and Louis XIV style furniture, a prosecutor's vision of Baroque. The same company that built the hotel also built Olga's Greek villa, and its website boasts of another project, yet another villa on the shore. Construction is well underway. Excavators are working on artificial landscapes and an Acropolis-styled arbor. The villa commands views over the magnificent and sacred Mount Athos, and its owner, according to the papers, is none other than Artyom Chaika. According to local journalists, he visited Greece for the first time on his honeymoon. His father also loves the country and has repeatedly said that he visits the Holy Mountain once a year.
We've been there with my younger son, lived in monastic cells. There you get into an entirely different state of mind, start appreciating the world in a different way. If I may say so, I'm getting spiritually recharged there. There you see the real values of this life so much clearer.
Artyom's Greek neighbors like to joke that they live next door to a friend of Putin's. Travel agencies sell VIP tours to Pomegranate's Sports and Wellness Center, located on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea. The Greek press is full of stories about the most expensive and luxurious hotel in the country. Behind all this, there lurks the son of the general prosecutor and the wife of his deputy. These are family members of officials whose job is to fight crime and corruption, yet they are neck deep in corruption themselves. And this is just the start of the story. The funds Artyom Chaika and Olga Lopatina invested into those hotels and villas have a very long shadow. The Pomegranate Hotel is owned by a Greek company, and this document is the company's entry from the state registrar. And these are the financial statements of that company, signed by Artyom Chaika. The text is in Greek, and only the family name is discernible. An online translator reveals interesting details, however. For example, we now know that the son of the Russian general prosecutor claims Switzerland as his country of residence.
В документах о назначении президента отеля и компании, которой им владеет, указано, что Артем Чайка является обладателем удостоверения личности Швейцарии. То есть этот человек платит там налоги, он там владеет недвижимостью, он там живет. Мы нашли эту недвижимость.
According to a Swiss open-source database, the Russian general prosecutor's son lives in this small house on the shore of Lake Geneva. Here is the sign from the post labeled Monsieur and Madame Chaika. However, having checked the real estate register, we discovered that Artyom's family does not actually own the property.
Национальное назначение этого дома, в принципе, понятно. Он не для того, чтобы там жить, а для того, чтобы набирать стаж для официальных каких-то бумаг, для получения гражданства или еще чего-то. Б. Это для того, чтобы иметь почтовый адрес в Швейцарии, куда швейцарские власти могли прислать корреспонденцию.
Clearly, we needed to continue our search. Indeed, if Artyom Chaika has decided to spend the rest of his life in Switzerland, he would need a house more suitable to his prosecutorial dignity. We were encouraged by the fact that the small house with Chaika's name on the mailbox belongs to a certain Lizyarenko family. Lilia Lizyarenko is a family friend of Gennady Lopatin, Deputy General Prosecutor, and the supposedly ex-husband of Chaika's hotel co-owner. Artyom Chaika's real house is about a mile away. He bought it a year ago for almost 3 million Swiss francs. That's around $3 million. Modern and stylish, the villa boasts a wonderful terrace where the owner can enjoy a cup of tea along with views of Lake Geneva and the Alps. Artyom and his family appear to have decided to relocate to Switzerland on a permanent basis. That being so, he'll need to service his house, which means he will need accounts in the local banks. While searching for these, in the records of the local register of companies, we discovered Chaika's own law firm. The law firm is a true family business. Igor Chaika, the younger son of the general prosecutor and Artyom's little brother, was the sole shareholder in the firm until March 2015, when he transferred his shares to his big brother. Chaika's firm provides a wide range of legal services in Switzerland. The firm's name is FT Conseil, FT being the initials of Chaika's partner, François Tarin. We went to the firm's registered office to find out if the general prosecutor's son is indeed doing business in Switzerland. Monsieur Tarin was in the office but declined to talk to us.
I don't speak with the press.
You don't speak with the press?
Never. No
but you
comment,
don't know
Mr.
what questions I shall ask?
No comment, mister. Okay. No comment.
Okay.
Monsieur Tarin knows Russian people well. In the 1990s, he helped Sergei Mikhailov, also known by his criminal nickname Mikhas, the leader of the Solntsevo organized crime group, to obtain Swiss citizenship. Monsieur Tarin previously worked at a law firm called Juridical House, which, until 2007, was owned by Murat Hapsirokov, who is now a senator. Hapsirokov is the son of Nazir Hapsirokov, who used to be the General Prosecutor's Chief of Administration. This firm is managing the Chaika family's bank accounts and their assets in Switzerland. Millions of dollars have been flowing into the General Prosecutor's family accounts since 2003. This wealth is being invested into lakeside villas in Switzerland and into hotels on the Mediterranean. The Chaikas claim that the source of this wealth is a shipping business in the city of Irkutsk, which is where we go next. The river Lena rises in the mountains near Lake Baikal, and it was here, in Siberia's Irkutsk region, that Yuri Chaika made the first steps in his career. His son Artyom started out here too, when he cast his eye onto a shipping company in the city of Ust-Kut, some 1,000 kilometers north of Irkutsk. The shipping company was strategically important, since it was crucial to keeping the region of Yakutia supplied with food and fuel. But in 2002, the company came across a serious problem. The Verkhnelensky Shipping Company's fleet looks like this now, but it looked very different at the end of the 1990s when it owned 70 large tankers and River Sea class bulk carriers. In 1999, Artyom and Bashir Kudzoyev, a member of the State Duma, Russia's lower house of parliament, co-founded a company called Leina. Leina loaned the shipping company $2 million to repair its fleet, but once the money had been spent, demanded immediate repayment. The shipping company repaid the money with difficulty and thus lacked the funds needed to support its operations. Kudzoyev then filed an application for bankruptcy, while Artyom Chaika, a graduate of the Irkutsk University Law School, put together a plan for turning the company around, which envisaged handing control to his associates. The shipping company's directors rejected that plan, so Chaika persuaded a classmate to become a shareholder and call a general meeting to debate replacing the board of directors. This strategy failed too. Finally, Irkutsk city prosecutors brought criminal charges against the shipping company's directors. At that time, Albina Kovalova, a friend of the Chaika family, was the Irkutsk city prosecutor.
Есть вся инфраструктура для этого, да, то есть сам Чайка выходец из Иркутской области, да, то есть все сотрудники прокуратуры фактически его ставленники, да, то есть есть Альбина Ковалева, да, то есть с уникальной должностью, женщине там, по-моему, уже больше 70 лет, может даже больше 80, она до сих пор работает в прокуратуре, хотя должна там по возрасту давно уйти на пенсию, у нее там должность что-то типа там представитель генпрокурора при прокуратуре, да, то есть такой очень интересный способ получать зарплату и влиять на какие-то процессы. А прокуратура – это же легальный рынок насилия.
At first glance, Albina Kovalova is of little importance in this story. However, we should remember that she had worked at the Irkutsk city prosecutor's office with Yuri Chaika and can still influence his decisions. Shortly after mayoral elections were abolished, her son Dmitry Berdnikov was appointed mayor of Irkutsk, and Dmitry does not try to hide his relationship with the general prosecutor's son.
Вы очень близких отношениях состоите с сыном нашего генерального прокурора. Вы знаете, мы абсолютно разными вещами занимались всегда. А то, что мы дружим, да, ну, вы, наверное, сами понимаете, что хороший друг, он всегда хороший друг, неважно, чей он сын. Какую-то вот чрезмерную значимость нашим отношениям я бы не придавал.
Albina Kovalova's disciples have very successful careers. They include Yuri Chaika, the general prosecutor, his deputy Ivan Semchishin, the Zabaikalsk region prosecutor Vasily Voikin, the Saratov region prosecutor Vladimir Stepanov, and the Murmansk region prosecutor Maxim Ershov. The current Irkutsk region prosecutor Igor Melnikov and the Krasnodar region prosecutor Leonid Korzhenek, protector of the infamous Sapki gang, also began their careers under her supervision. Artyom Chaika enjoys a warm personal relationship with Ms. Kovalova, whom he reportedly refers to in public as his second mother. The director of the shipping company who stood up to Chaika and the prosecutor is Nikolai Palyony, and this is how he described the attack on his business in December 2002.
Конфликт а по предприятиям Верхнеленского пароходства Киренское и Алексеевского рыбфлота длится уже, грубо говоря, 2 года. Вот этот конфликт, который нам создается группой, я бы сказал, не совсем порядочных лиц, и в том числе за этим стоит и сын министра юстиции Артем Юрьевич Чайка, она создает нам очень негативный фон для работы наших предприятий.
At that time, Nikolai Palyony still hoped that he could appeal to the leadership of the country and prevent the state company being stolen.
Мы хотим предостеречь от поспешных шагов наше Мингосимущество, чтобы не делали вот этих поспешных шагов по смене руководства и чтобы не приводили нам в наши северные края каких-то варягов, не пойми откуда, и не решали так судьбу наших руководителей. Это не по-государственному.
At 11 a.m. on the 30th of December 2002, Nikolai Palyony walked out of this building where he had his apartment to go to the garage to get his car. An hour later at noon, he was found hanged in the garage. A criminal investigation was never opened and his death was pronounced a suicide. Much later, journalists anonymously received these documents which relate to the forensic examination. They describe the ligature mark, the furrow that the rope left around the neck. Its length was 41 centimeters. That is the circumference of the neck of the deceased, the full circumference. In a suicide, the ligature mark does not span the full circumference of the neck. Despite the fact that this and other pieces of evidence point to his death having been murder, the law enforcement bodies and the prosecutor's office never investigated the death of Mr. Palyony. What happened to the ships? For the first time, we disclose how these public assets were misappropriated. The dry cargo ships were assigned to 2 ports of registry, Kerensky and Alexeyevsky. These ports executed freight contracts with the parent company, Verkhnelensky River Shipping Company. After the death of Mr. Palyony, the director of the shipping company, a managing company with a similar name, United Verkhnelensky River Shipping Company, assumed the management of the vessels. It had recently been incorporated and registered at the same address as other Artyom Chaika companies, Building 1 at 5 Mashkova Street, Moscow. Then, through a chain of pseudo-creditors and fictitious court orders, the company was forced to repay its debts with the vessels. In this manner, 16 ships were transferred to a Moscow equestrian club called Serafimovo. The club is controlled by the same people as United Verkhnelensky River Shipping Company. They are backed by Artyom Chaika and his partners. Another 5 vessels were sold to a bogus company. Within half a year, all were re-registered to Mr. Chaika companies. Several vessels were sold for a pittance to companies registered in the island of Malta. And more than 10 ships were rented by Artyom Chaika personally at a special rate of 1/3 of that charged on the open market. Unseaworthy vessels were just abandoned. The proceeds from the sale of other ships passed through a classical money laundering scheme. First, the money was transferred to a Latvian bank and then moved between accounts until it was transferred to Switzerland to the family account of the Chaikas. Later still, it was converted into houses on the bank of Lake Geneva. Following this successful raid, several people from his team went after the salt business, also in the Irkutsk region. This is Tiret, the 4th biggest salt mine in Russia. In November 2011, this state enterprise was sold for 660 million rubles, although its market value was estimated at triple that. With the help of Mr. Fetisov of the Agency of State Property, a newly established company, Solidarity, associated with Artyom Chaika, became the owner of the salt mine.
Фетисов вообще это бывший работник милиции. Прокурор города Иркутска Ковалева Альбина Семеновна, она перешла на работу сначала в прокуратуру области, потом возглавила управление юстиции по регистрации сделок с недвижимым имуществом. Фетисов возглавлял отдел безопасности этого органа. Потом со временем, когда уже Чайка стал генеральным прокурором, Ковалева стала советником при генеральном прокуроре, Фетисов ушел на должность руководителя Росимущества по Иркутской области.
As we found out, Pavel Fetisov also started his career under Albina Kovalova.
Вот эта вся рокировка, вот эта вот, скажем так, близость Фетисова как раз именно к той команде, которая работала долгое время с Чайкой на разных должностях, вот дает основание предполагать, что назначение, то есть одной из целей назначения этого на эту должность было именно приватизация этого турецкого солерудника.
Other bidders were simply not allowed to tender in the privatization auction of one of the largest salt mines in the country.
Там было банальное запугивание в том смысле, что была минимум одна группа людей, которая хотела участвовать в аукционе на его продаже. И было просто сказано, что, ребят, сколько уголовных дел на каждого вы хотите? Да, выбирайте, там, педофилия, прекрасный состав, да, то есть жизнь сразу кончится. Любое СИЗО России. Хотите посидеть с ВИЧ-инфицированными, с туберкулезными, то есть любой сервис. Люди сказали, нет, все, спасибо, мы больше мы не хотим заниматься турецким солерудником.
This is how the ownership of properties and enterprises all over the country has been changing under the auspices of the prosecutor's offices. Artyom Chaika's next target was the Vorobyovsk salt deposit near Kaluga. In 2013, 4 companies submitted bids to develop the deposit. 2 out of the 4 bidders, including the Rusalt company, which was considered the frontrunner and was the main player in the Russian salt market, were rejected as they supposedly lacked the resources to undertake the work required. Maloyaroslavetsky salt mining and the Terezk salt mine were allowed to bid. Chaika controls Maloyaroslavetsky salt mining through a company called Galit. Chaika controls the Terezk salt mine as well. The question is, how can this kind of rigged bid take place? The answer is that it requires the help of regional prosecutor Dmitry Demeshin. He and Artyom Chaika are close friends. A month after the tender, Demeshin was promoted to Major General and moved to Moscow, where he became the head of the Anti-Corruption Department of the Office of the General Prosecutor of the Russian Federation. And here is Artyom himself, placing a commemorative capsule into the foundation of the Vorobyevsk salt processing plant. And there, next to him, is Igor Chaika, his brother and the youngest son of the General Prosecutor of Russia. We'll talk about him later. Not far from the Vorobyevsk salt deposit, there is another sand quarry. Its director, Oleg Karapetov, has experienced firsthand how Chaika does business. Last spring, all the access roads to the biggest sand quarry in the Kaluga region were blocked by felled trees. Officers from the local prosecutor's office were stationed in their cars outside the quarry's headquarters around the clock.
Везде присутствовала прокуратура по 3 человека на проверках. Я уже стал в этот момент начал понимать, что здесь происходит что-то не то. С такой функцией они приехали, чтобы остановить предприятие.
The quarry's license was revoked. One of the reasons cited by the prosecutors was the lack of a steering wheel on a bulldozer, a machine that never has a steering wheel.
Я неоднократно ездил, встречался с людьми, везде вот так вот в одну точку указывают люди, и люди, они непростые. Ну, сюда, наверх, все. Я считаю, что прокуратура сейчас деятельница это правосудие.
Some years ago, the Mostovsky quarry got a new neighbor, a company named Siberian Element Renta K. The companies competed for contracts to supply sand for the reconstruction of nearby highways, and that's when officers from the prosecutor's office started to inspect the Mostovsky quarry.
Везде инициатор выступает природоохранная прокуратура. Кому я убытки нанес, никто ничего не предъявляет. Везде прокуратура.
Я 40 лет проработал здесь. И я ничего не боюсь. Сомнетесь, сомнете. Вот пусть люди слушают. Стыдно? Государство строим правовое. А вы первый исполнитель. Это я вам просто вот при всех.
Я сейчас составлю акт об отказе выдачи документов при остановлении на 90 суток. Значит, тогда пойдем таким путем.
Ну, а там сибирский элемент, один учредитель, физическое лицо, Артем Чайка. Поэтому что-то. Пытался выйти через верха в Москве, но на контакт никто, пытались и люди эту тему урегулировать. Как-то я вот пытаюсь уже год. Приходил к министру раза два. Нормальные ребята, и нас же ежегодно проверяют, ежегодно это, и сейчас всегда показывают туда, наверх, показывают. Мы, говорит, ничего сделать не можем. Судись. Мне было везде сказано, держись в судах. Это, видимо, рэкет идет.
When all these internal investigations were taking place, the Kaluga region prosecutor was Alexander Gulyagin, the son of Yuri Gulyagin, deputy general prosecutor. Quarry employees suspected that it was Gulyagin who was giving orders to his employees with the best interests in mind of Artyom Chaika, his boss's son. In the time he has free from taking over state property, Artyom enjoys riding motorbikes. He's a biker. This year he rode to Minsk with his own Ironbirds bike club to celebrate the opening and closing of the riding season. Local journalists spotted him in a group of bikers, along with his younger brother Igor. Igor, the younger son of Russia's general prosecutor, followed in his brother's footsteps by starting his own business while a student. By the time he turned 27, Igor had achieved spectacular results. His approach is different from that of his brothers because Igor mainly makes money on government contracts. His business goes hand in hand with winning multi-billion government bids on projects like growing urban greenery, improving public services, and waste collection. His administrative connections guarantee his success via a network of affiliated companies that in each case effectively form a cartel to win government tenders.
Один из крупнейших в Европе. Новый скейт-парк сегодня открыли в Останкине. Площадка занимает ни много ни мало гектар.
Завершение парка, реконструкции парка Останкино, большую, огромную работу провели. Я помню, вы мне говорили об этом.
3 days after it opened, this skateboard park, the biggest in Europe, was closed for reconstruction. It turned out that skateboarding there was so dangerous it could kill you.
Ну это вообще мясо. То есть если маленький ребенок сюда упадет, он будет орать, наверное, и как бы его никто не вытащит вообще. Да, максимально опасный, кривой. Я не знаю, ну кто съедет, наверное, получит очень много денег за то, что он сюда съедет просто вообще. И качество покрытия, да, но халтурное. То есть строительство явно было не по технологии.
This skateboarding park was a part of the renovation of the huge Ostankino Park, which was performed by the City Stroy Service Company. Other companies that competed for the bid were Innovations of Light, Baltic Stroy Company, and Navigational Solutions. Innovations of Light belongs to Igor Chaika. At first sight, the other three companies are unrelated and were founded by different people in different cities. However, all the firms are interrelated. Firstly, the website addresses of their offices and affiliates match. At some point, 3 out of 4 of the companies use the same legal address in a business center in Moscow. Secondly, the owners of 2 of the companies are related through another firm, Dialsa, which was sold by the owner of City Stroy Service, Dennis Galligan, to the owner of Navigation Solutions, Alexander Tsurkan. It is thought that Tsurkan's firm won a 15-year, 43 billion ruble tender for waste collection in Moscow with the help of Igor Chaika. Dialsa was registered at the same business center in Moscow. Besides, all 4 companies effectively share the same staff and don't really try to conceal it. Each firm promotes vacancies in the other companies through employment websites. The architect working for City Stroy Service also works on projects for Baltic Stroy Company and Igor Chaika's Innovations of Light. The same web developer created the websites for all 4 companies and also worked on the brochures for Tiret Salt Mine and even on the website for the hotel in Greece, all the property of Artyom Chaika, Igor's brother. Thus, the 4 seemingly unrelated companies in various combinations took part in and won tenders amounting to more than 2.5 billion rubles. This arrangement obviously looks like a criminal cartel.
Эти 4 компании в связке с друг другом приходили на торги. Одна из них выигрывала, а остальные устраивали липовую конкуренцию. При этом мы знаем как минимум 14 таких эпизодов. Эти же самые компании имеют одни и те же адреса, сотрудников, директоров и даже дизайнер сайта у них один и тот же. При этом на конкурс по озеленению Останкино они подавали заявки с одного IP-адреса и в одно и то же самое время.
The Federal Anti-Monopoly Service has repeatedly extended the deadline to investigate the anti-competitive behaviour accusation that we filed. As yet, there is no result. Meanwhile, the successes of Igor Chaika continue to be remarkable. In May 2015, the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Riccardo Muti, gave a concert in the town of Klin in the Moscow region, which is a very long way from its normal itinerary. This was a triumph for Igor Chaika, who has voluntarily served as cultural advisor to local governor Andrei Vorobyov. Among other things, he created logos and brand books for the region's towns, renovated historical houses, created weekend fairs, and organized celebrations for various Orthodox saints. This is how Igor Chaika described his job in an interview to TV Rain during the music festival.
В 2014 году нам удалось привлечь более 800 миллионов рублей внебюджетных инвестиций. И многие фестивали, многие парки, которые открывались на территории Подмосковья, они были сделаны в том числе за внебюджетные средства.
А какая в этом доля ваших собственных средств?
Ну, какая разница, слушайте, я же...
Не скромничайте.
А?
Не скромничайте.
Нет, я буду скромничать, потому что я человек православный, и нужно быть смиренным.
And this is a video of the humble Igor Chaika getting into a helicopter. As if to emphasize the status of their young boss, the security guards are extremely concerned about his safety.
Представьтесь, пожалуйста, я представитель фирмы, я уже Вопросы какие? Вы нарушаете... Какие вопросы?
Even more humble is the special motorcade that escorts him on his trips around the Moscow region. Sometimes humble Igor Chaika drives himself and even gives an occasional lift to his elder brother. Before his appointment as the culture advisor, Igor Chaika said he wanted to work in the government. And to make room for Igor, the governor fired his deputy for culture. However, 18 months later, on July 20, Igor Chaika left his post of the advisor to the governor, saying he did not want to abandon his business interests. On top of the park renovation business, Igor also owns a few other companies. According to its articles of incorporation, Aquasolid deals in chemicals. In reality, it is a massive concrete producer. Visual Technologies produces road signs and nameplates. In 2014, Igor's firm T Industria bought from Russian Railways 50% minus 2 shares of Beletrans, which makes concrete rail sleepers. The purchase price was 3 billion rubles, and the auction was a sham.
На мой взгляд, этот конкурс был чисто формальным, потому что 2 участника А-терминал и Т-индустрия являются аффилированными и, очевидно, составляют картель, потому что они управляются с одного и того же лица голландского транспорта.
Despite Igor's attempts to look like a modern, Western-minded urban planner, he does business in the same manner as his older brother, winning government contracts in questionable or outright rigged tenders. While Igor was preoccupied with the concrete tender, Artyom purchased a stone-crushing business from the state-run Russian Railways. One could assume the brothers are doing business together, but this question seems to be very sensitive for Igor, and he avoids answering it.
Артема Юрьевича, вы как-то привлекаете для того, чтобы готовить те проекты, которые вы развиваете здесь, связанные, может быть, с Новым Иерусалимом, там, с Сергией Лаврой, здесь с Клином?
Ну, вы знаете, я думаю, что о деятельности моего брата лучше спросить моего брата. Вот, поэтому вы же вроде подошли ко мне с интервью по поводу Чайковского, а уже перешли на абсолютно другие тематики.
Мы просто изголодались по информации и, в общем, пользуемся возможностью задавать те вопросы, которые любопытны нашим телезрителям, аудитории.
Я понял. Но что касается моего брата, конечно, лучше спросить моего брата.
In reality, Igor knows his brother's businesses well, simply because he is part of it. Igor worked as the advisor to the town of Klin, thanks to his brother's connections with Alyona Sokolskaya, the head of the district. Her husband, Alexander Kozlov, an ex-deputy prosecutor of Moscow, was involved in the illegal casino business. The head of his administration, Eduard Kaplun, a former prosecutor of Klin, was also involved in this case. Igor's brother Artyom was implicated in the case as the organizer of this criminal network. There are more connections. Elizaveta Berezina is both a partner in Igor's Moscow law firm and a participant in the auction for the salt deposit on behalf of Artyom. She is the founder of the firm which facilitated the fake competition for the Vorobyovsk deposit. Artyom's firm in Switzerland even belonged to Igor until spring 2015. Their lawyers worked with the son of Nazir Hapsirokov, the former chief of administration at the prosecutor's office. Igor uses businessman Alexander Ponomarov as his nominee shareholder, the very same Ponomarov who helped transfer the ships from Verkhnelensky Shipping Company to RTM. So Igor is a part of a huge system in which senior prosecutors are involved. For example, prosecutors from Kaluga helped Artyom gain control over the salt deposits, and prosecutors from Irkutsk helped him seize the ship company. With the Lapatin family, Chaika does business in Greece. Through Lapatin, he is connected with the Tsapki gang in Krasnodar, where Kovalyova's former student, Leonid Korzanek, is the prosecutor. Her protégés also protect the family's interests in Tomsk, Irkutsk, Murmansk, and other regions. Witnesses report that Artyom flies all over the country, instructing regional prosecutors which criminal cases to open and which to close.
Мы вышли за рамки нашего обычного антикоррупционного расследования, потому что здесь не только коррупция, здесь грабежи, убийства, рэкет. Эта система ненаказуемая, потому что ее построили те, кто должны наказывать. А в нее задействовано такое большое количество людей, что высшее руководство страны, конечно, знает о том, что происходит. И на Юрия Яковлевича Чайку такая толстая папка компромата, что он абсолютно управляемый. Он делает то, что ему скажут. Для этого он и нужен.